Hey guys, it's your girl DJ Sims and welcome back to the Culture Podcast. I am here with DJ Limelight and today we have got a very exciting guest.
Yeah, man.
Super excited for this one. He is actually the man who's captured magical weddings, big celebrity weddings as well. Goes by the name of Vishal from The Wedding Filmer.
There you go. Vishal, Vishal, depending on who's calling my name out in the UK.
Yeah.
Let's just make it clear, I always get it wrong.
Vishal.
Yeah.
I like it. It's cool. It reminds me of school because that's what they used to call me in school.
Yeah.
Vishal.
Yeah. And that's really interesting that you mentioned school. I think we just get right into it because you've done some crazy weddings.
I do.
High profile people in the Bollywood world. Some real legendary people. You've captured legendary moments with your lens.
Thanks, man.
And you know, it all life started off for you in Ghana, and then you spent some time on Ilford Lane.
I did.
That's crazy for me because, I mean, I'm always on Ilford Lane eating something.
There you go. There used to be a pawn shop around the corner.
Still there
used to be one guy who used to sell Shah Rukh Khan posters, and I was this massive Shah Rukh Khan fan. To the point, so my mother used to watch his films and she came home and told me, and I could barely speak Hindi, I'd never been to India. I was a proper barking boy. And then she made me watch a Shah Rukh Khan movie and took me for a premiere. You know, they used to have these shows that they used to come, these Shah Rukh Khan and Amir Khan and Salman Khan, then they'd come to London and do these big shows at Wembley. And so then she took me for these shows and I used to go there and I became a crazy fan. I used to try and look like him. I used to wear a leather jacket like him.
Oh my God.
And then,
sorry, my dog's here. That's why
Pablo. He's tripping.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to work with him really badly. So I wrote to him one day and got a job, just randomly. None of my friends believed that I was getting a job with Shah Rukh at the time.
But this was whilst you were living in Barking.
In Barking.
So you was living in Barking in East London.
In East London. He's living in Bollywood in Bombay.
And you're like a crazy fan of his. Just like how millions of people are.
Millions of people. Like most of the boys outside down there.
And you wrote a letter to him.
I wrote a letter to him. Incidentally, he was launching this website. So that was the time of the .com boom. And around that time, he was making this website, which was a Bollywood portal. And he wanted someone to design it. Now, I was a really cool designer back then. A couple of websites I had made got a couple of design awards. So they were looking for someone who could do this. And it just so helped that I could speak the language. I was their color. I was more than happy to come and work with them. So he headhunted me, found me.
Wow.
And I ran. The moment that the first opportunity I had to leave, I left.
You did.
And
I don't blame you for leaving Barking and Ilford Lane so quickly, but to leave for that reason, I mean, what was the first reaction that you had when you got a response for reaching out to Shah Rukh Khan?
It was exciting, but I think at that time I was just there was so much belief that you want to make life work that you didn't think of what could go wrong. You're young, you're very brave, you're very naive. I was 19?
Wow.
I dropped out of college and I just done college for 6 months. I'd moved to Sheffield to start college and I dropped out and ran.
I don't blame you.
I was about to say, that's even worse than Ilford Lane. You moved to Sheffield.
I went to Sheffield.
So you just randomly hit him up because of this new thing that he's doing.
Yeah.
With hopes. And dreams that maybe he might respond.
Moral of the story, you have to try. You can't not try, because if that one, you know, like they say in a day, if you say something at a certain time, there's always one moment that's meant for you.
Yes.
I think I just chanted it and manifested it so hard that it happened just like that.
So then obviously once you left and you started working with him, what was that actually like working with someone like Shah Rukh Khan? Like, what was your experience like working with him? Obviously, you knew all about him. He's massive, you know. You probably had maybe some expectations beforehand. Was he the way you imagined him to be?
He was a lot smaller than I thought he was. You'd imagine him to be bigger, but he was a little smaller, but very enigmatic and very charming. He was
so when you met him, you was disappointed?
Well, he was a great mentor, so no.
Oh.
No, but when you first saw him.
When I first saw him, I mean, appearance-wise, I was like, is that it? You'd expect him to be bigger and taller.
Yeah.
But he was a really good mentor to have. He guided me really well, taught me everything I knew about cinema. He made me work with some really cool technicians over the span of 10. So I worked with him for 10 years, over a decade.
Wow.
And then finally, I started my own company.
So he basically mentored you throughout that time?
He really did, yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I had 3 mentors. There was him, and there was Farah Khan, and there was a guy called Santosh Sivan, who's this ace cinematographer, cameraman in Bollywood. He used to make all these big Bollywood movies. And Farah, everyone knows Farah Khan, the choreographer, director.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And Shah Rukh himself.
So like when you went out to India to work with Shah Rukh Khan, what was your kind of ambition at that point as a videographer? Was you trying to shoot music videos? Was you trying to get into the movie game?
So back then I really wasn't a videographer. Videography came to me much later. I started off as a designer. I switched to filmmaking in between. The company I went for to design websites for, which was Shah Rukh's company, shut down within 6 months of starting up. They got into some financial trouble. So eventually I had to shift base to Bollywood. This .com company that I was working with shut down. And I was the only one who was shifted onto the Bollywood space. So I had to start from the ground level, from zero, absolute zero, which would be a runner boy, a production boy.
Yeah.
And then I worked my way up from there. But all my design skills came in handy because very soon I started doing visual effects for them and compositing, and I got really into it. And I get obsessive when I start something. So I obsessed about visual effects and compositing and 3D animation, and that's what I started doing and I did that for 3 or 4 films of his and excelled at it, and we built this whole VFX studio, and that became exciting. And through that, advertising work came in, and through that I started directing advertising work, and that's when I started picking up the camera around that time.
Wow.
So then after that, you opened your company, The Wedding
Filmer.
And that is like basically where your story began.
That's where my story began. So the dream was always to make a Bollywood film. And Bollywood is a little nepotistic, you have to admit. Like if my father was Karan Johar or someone like that. Or
you would have already had that leap.
I would have already had that leap. We had to start from scratch and then just trying to get cast involved and and I did really well. We had a really cool script written. Shah Rukh had said yes to it. Priyanka had said yes to it. But the film got shelved because he wanted to make another one called Rawan, which is another massive film. And I wasn't ready to do another film like this. And in between 2000 and 2010, I took a 2-year sabbatical and went back to Africa, which is where I'm from, Ghana. I started making local films with local cameras, small format cameras, and I fell in love with the small format situation. What I realized is when I was working with Shah Rukh Khan, you're spoiled as a director. Whatever you want, you get, budgets-wise and actor-wise. And when you start doing it in a place like Ghana, where no film industry exists, you have to again do everything yourself. You have to figure out costumes yourself. You have to figure out cast yourself. You have to figure out gear, and, production design, and everything was. I didn't have DOPs, so I had to pick up the camera and shoot myself. Wow. And I think in doing all of that, I fell in love with cinema more than I did when I was in India. So I went back to India armed and ready to make a film, but he was making Rawan, which was this massive movie. And I didn't want to spend another 2 years of my life on another film. I had to start my life up.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided, where can I use the small format camera in India and just break my head a little bit and then shoot it really nicely. And so I shot my first wedding. It was this very pretty girl getting married to the Spanish boy. I filmed that really beautifully, and I think no one understood what we were doing back then, because Indian wedding videos were so very different. They had the camera guy, his bum crack showing when he'd bend.
And eating at the table, probably.
Yeah, just people eating and who's coming, people having random conversations. And then I come in with proper cameras and proper cinema guys, and we had cinematographers on set. The guys who were editing the films with me were real film editors who were editing my advertising work with me. So they kind of understood what we were doing, and we made sense to the madness that was all of this footage and tried to tell a story. And because I'm a filmmaker, then I started doing interviews with people. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
But that first one, though, how did that even come around? And did you ever hesitate? Did you ever think to yourself, I don't want to go down the wedding route? Did that ever cross your mind?
Not even once. Not even once. I was expecting my first child around that time. And I think the motivation to do something big for yourself and independent was very strong. So the thought of doing something smaller than Bollywood was not something I was concerned about. I think I was more concerned about the finances of it and setting up a company and doing all of these things because I'd not done that before. But I also found it very exciting. Like it was when things would work and you had good ideas.
Was that wedding taking place in India?
It was a very small wedding. It wasn't even a big wedding. It was a tiny wedding in a tiny fair it wasn't a big budget wedding. The bride didn't pay me much. I got what, £500 for my first wedding? It was nothing. I did it just because I wanted the experience of seeing how I can do this well.
Yeah.
And the fact that I could take something that was so mediocre and not special to anyone who had seen it and make that really beautiful to a point where people were reacting to it online. They didn't know the bride, they didn't know the groom. I started doing music. So music was inherently in me. I used to do music when I was in India, when I was in London. It's from Ghana. So rhythm and music is, you're taught it when you're born.
Yeah.
And then I went to India and I was for a year, for a decade, I was exposed to Indian musicians and I was working with Shankar Ehsaan Loy and Vishal Shekhar and Anu Malik and all these guys. So I was learning a lot of music from them. Farah was a very good mentor with music.
Yeah.
She took me for all the music sittings of her movies that we used to work on. And I think the first film I made, I did music for it in the wedding film. We scored it and we got this traditional singer to sing and it was just really beautiful. And the songs went viral because nobody had heard music like that before.
Yeah.
And that exploded. And there was no looking back then. I think it became really big in the West because until then it was just really big in India, but nobody in the West was really understanding what we did. And then in 2015, there was a movie called Ye Jawaani Hai Deewani.
Yes, massive movie.
And the guy who directed it was a very close friend of mine. His name was Ayan. And he had this 10-15 day wedding scene in the film.
Yeah.
And then he wanted me to come direct it because he's like, I want it to be real. I want it to look like your weddings. I don't want it to look like a Bollywood film.
Yeah.
So I was like, game, let's do this. And he was a sweet guy. I know him for a long time. We used to work together when I was working with Shah Rukh. So I directed the Ye Jawaani Ye Deewani Hai scene for him. And that went viral, like huge in a big way. Like the clothes they wore, the music that played, the location they got married in, it just wanted to be emulated. It became the new canvas for the new Indian wedding.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone wanted, a wedding
People
like that.
probably referring back to that movie.
Yes.
Saying, I want my wedding like this.
I want my friends, I don't want my aunts. I want to keep it intimate, I don't want to have a big,
I mean, that's probably the biggest advertisement you can have for...
Yeah, it gets bigger.
Okay. I was about to say that.
It gets bigger. So you think Bollywood is big, and I was like, okay, this is getting big. And then Anushka Sharma was getting married to this guy called Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli is the Indian cricket captain. Now, if you think Bollywood is big, cricket is worshipped. Wow. And then when you get Bollywood and cricket together...
Then it's just crazy.
Then it's just madness. It's the UK equivalent would be the guy who shot...
I'd say it's like David Beckham, possibly.
Yeah.
Marrying Victoria.
I mean, at the time,
that was the shit. Yeah.
It was
crazy.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, we've screamed Kohli.
It was the Indian royal wedding, you could say that.
Yeah.
And when we did that, and then she was graceful enough to share it online, and and she credited us, and she was really sweet about it. She wrote me this long, lovely letter, and I think she really appreciated it. And I think the work I do, the work you do, it's all about word of mouth and how good you are.
Yeah.
And how much people enjoy your work and enjoy your presence there. And then want to share that with people they love and be like, oh, if you're doing this, then you need this.
But it's also about how you treat people and how you come across as a person, I believe. Because it's very easy for people to not like somebody because of the way they speak to people, the way they behave. I mean, you've clearly built network through the way you are as a person.
You're a barking boy, so respect is inherent. It's someone's wedding, so you have to respect their work.
And we've got to make it clear, growing up in East London, growing up in Barking, it's not the prettiest of places. It's a rough place to grow up
but you can still find beauty in it. Like there was some really beautiful things about the people who I worked with here, I lived with here. It was a community. It was there. But
you've used those kind of experiences in your life to then elevate into like these crazy spaces of working with some of the elites in India.
True.
And then do you ever get time, or do you ever get time to then reflect? Because I know today you're saying you took a trip down to Ilford Lane to have a look and just to reminisce on your childhood or like your early days.
Yeah.
Do you ever get enough time to do that, or do you feel like you try?
I do. And it's important to look back. You know, your past, I was telling somebody this the other day, your past is your only way of remember. If you forget it, you're bound to repeat the same mistakes you made in the past. You got to remember them. You got to take your time and value the failures you've gone through, the successes you've gone through, and hold on to them. Don't forget them.
Yeah.
Don't let them go so easily, because that's what shaped who you are, and you don't want to make the same mistakes you made again. Remember them.
100%.
So when you started filming for like these big Bollywood weddings, so they're actual weddings now, so not the films.
Not films.
Yeah, not the films. They're actual weddings. How... It must be a bit weird, because obviously you're used to kind of filming like Bollywood films and those sort of kind of theatrical moments.
You can cut.
Yeah, but I feel like your wedding films are still very theatrical. They're still very, you know, it's all about the cinema feel and everything. But is there like a difference with the weddings? How do you like differentiate the two? Do you film it in a different way?
You do. It's a whole different approach to filmmaking. Shooting something live versus shooting something scripted. Fiction versus non-fiction.
Yes, yeah.
That's the main difference. So, but there's strengths, like there's strengths that advertising taught me that I could bring to Bollywood, that I could bring to wedding filmmaking. Brevity of expression, for example, how to say something in the smallest possible time so it's engaging to watch. Cinematicness, and you know, the flair for good shot taking and good editing comes from cinema. And working with these really cool people like Farah and Shah Rukh, and Shah Rukh's one of the best editors I've ever worked with. He edits every single film he shoots, and he acts, and he sits with the editor and goes through every scene.
That's crazy.
It's insane. It's insane the amount of work these guys do.
His career, I'm guessing he still has that.
They care a lot about what they do, and I think with wedding films there's that. With wedding films, the advantage is it's happening live. You don't have to set up things, and you can learn from real life and put them on to real life. So Ye Jawaani, like all the shots, every single shot in that wedding film, in that wedding scene, has been inspired from a real shot we've taken at a real wedding.
Yeah.
We can design it better because we're staging it.
Yes.
But the source and the seed of it has come from doing real life weddings. There's a show on Made in Heaven called Made in Heaven. It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah. It's based on my life, the character in it, and the scripts, each story and each episode is based on films that we have shot over the past 10 years.
Wow.
And it's one of the most successful shows that's come out of India. Just goes to show that you can do something real and then make it non-fiction and do it really beautifully. Yeah. And the other way around too.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let's talk about like the nitty-gritty side of filming a wedding, but also filming weddings for such high profile people, because you probably get asked that all the time. You know, you've shot at weddings for some of the biggest A-listers in Bollywood.
True.
I mean, what kind of obstacles do you face in that situation? What kind of struggles are there? Have you had any situations where you're just like, you know what, forget this. I don't even want to be here right now. It doesn't matter how big they are. They're really, really pushing my buttons.
The classism is a huge problem with Asians in general. I think here and in India. I think that really ticks me off. But then I do go through each bride and groom with, like, I go through and I interview them, and I make sure they're the right fit for me before I say yes. But I mean, you do find yourself in situations sometimes it's like, what am I doing and why am I doing this? It's not been easy. With celebrity weddings, it's the pressure is on to deliver something that looks as good as a film. Like, look, Deepika Padukone would do a movie with Sanjay Leela Bhansali. Aditi Rao Hedri will shoot with Bhansali and these like big, like Karan Johar and all these fancy filmmakers who've got like huge budgets to make them look good in terms of clothes and in terms of spaces and sets and lighting and production. We have none of that. When we're shooting a wedding, it's just a tiny camera and there's me, and I have to be not in their face. I have to be unobtrusive. Kind of
dodging people at the same time.
Dodging people, fighting the photographer for space, and then yet still make it look like that breathlessness when they see it. You have to impress them. Otherwise, what's the point? Life has to be a fairy tale when you watch a wedding video.
And you probably have, like, obviously you have a team as well, so your team have to basically be as good as you to get that right shot. So how do you even go about picking those team members to join the wedding filmer and get those shots for these A-list
And how many people's in the team?
Yeah.
I have 50 people back home. We have a team of 30 editors, we have colorists, we have sound designers, and then we have a team of cinematographers who go on shoot with me. Each of these people...
Boy done well, man.
Barking boy done well. So each person, each cinematographer, they're Bollywood guys and they're advertising guys and they're people who work in filmmaking. They do Netflix shows and Amazon shows. They've been working with me for like decades. Since the same guys who I worked with in the movies and the ads I used to shoot for Shah Rukh are the same guys who shoot the wedding films I do now. And then you'd be surprised at how amazing the new generation are. They're hungrier. When I started, there was no YouTube and Instagram with quick YouTube tips and how to cut and how to use softwares and how to use hardware and how to... There's none of that. We had to figure it out on our own. We had to go to film school. We had to take online courses and learn. We had to intern with people. But the new ones are sharper and they're smarter. And I think learning and training is changing the way the entertainment industry is building.
Yeah. With like the new people that come through, you must see a lot of like young people, as you mentioned, they're more hungry. I feel like some people in your position would just be like pushing them away and not getting them in to join the team because they might see it as competition. But do you see that as competition, or do you want to help them?
You want to help them. See, India, at least the country I live in now, it needs a huge source of employment because you've got one of the largest youth populations in the world. You also have one of the largest unemployment population in the world. And over the past year, I've been expanding the company drastically.
Yeah.
Where you want to try and make it more because it's expensive to make these films are not cheap.
Yeah.
So right now, only the upper middle class and the really elite can afford us. What I've been trying to do is trying to make it a little more affordable for people, and therefore opening up the market a little more so that every bride can have a fairy tale, but also then create more jobs. Because if 65 or 45 wedding films can give employment to 50 people, what if I can make 1,000 wedding films a year? How many more people can I employ?
Exactly.
We can turn around the market, and we can, and it's also a good home base, and not just for people who work with me directly, but we've also inspired a whole new industry. Even in the UK and Canada and in the US, they're emulating the way we make films, and they're using the technologies available now to make wedding films, and they're steering away from old-fashioned wedding films now. It's all becoming new-aged. Some of them are a little too new-aged. They're more like high-tech funeral films or action films. They're not like wedding films.
Yeah, I mean, you see this whole dramatic thing, and then you see this overweight guy just walking in to get married, and you're thinking, bro, he didn't need that song in the background. He didn't need that. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude.
I know what you mean.
And
speaking of songs, though, like I have seen, you speak about this before, but you've spoken about the whole bridal entrance songs and how some people choose really, I would say, depressing songs to walk into. And I've actually dealt with that as well. Like, when I performed at weddings, they're like, what song do you recommend? Can you please recommend me a song? Or could you make me a mix? And I'm like, perfect, cool. And then they come with me with the songs they want. And I'm like, this is really depressing.
One guy wanted this song called Channa Meria.
Yeah.
Which is a breakup song. And I'm just like, you wrote a breakup song on your wedding.
On your wedding.
Why do you think people wanna go down that route though?
I think it sounds haunting. It sounds emotional. They want people to cry when they come in. They want time to stand still when they come in.
Man.
But there are better ways of doing it. It's like, you don't want to put... So, Whitney Houston sang that song, and I will always love you. It's a breakup song. It's a sad song. It's a song about, leaving and death.
People just hear the word love, probably. And
there you go. Yeah. Like, oh, that song I want, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, so like, when it comes to like the music side of things, that, you come across people that might want a song and you don't really understand why. I mean, so let's talk about when you're liaising with the bride and groom. Because that's also a very, very specific thing. When we do weddings, whether it's Sims, whether it's myself, we make it very clear that, look, we're here to talk. We're not here to become your best friend, but we're here to talk and we're here to help. there's things that we can do a lot quicker than maybe you guys, because you guys are doing this for the first time and hopefully the last time. And obviously we've done this 100 times for 100 different people. So
but you're still single.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But what I'm trying to get at is, so what is the process between the bride and groom booking you and then getting to that final day and getting married? How much do you liaise with them?
It's a beautiful process. So unlike you, I have to be their best friend, because I have to be their therapist, I have to be their family, I have to be their friend and their videographer. Because what I do is I end up talking to not just them, I talk to their friends, I talk to their family, I talk to their moms, I talk to their dads, I speak to...
You basically stalk them.
I stalk them, I chat. So I chat, and it's not just a small chat, it's a chat about... you know, your relationship with your sister, your relationship with your mother, and you know the value she's taught you as she's brought you up, and how you guys met, and you know the insecurities you face and what you want out of this wedding. And there's some really in-depth conversations that we have about life. And what I've realized over the years is that they're going through so much at the wedding, so when they stop and they talk to me, it's introspective, it kind of brings them back to the present, and it helps me because I get to know so much more about life. Imagine if I've done 500 weddings, I've spoken to 1,000 grooms and brides. I've spoken to 2,000 parents, which means I've spoken to 4,000 grandparents on an average. And that's like thousands and thousands of friends and family, and you know, and then they all talk about one thing: how to make life better, how to fall in love, how to make it work, how to... So those are the thoughts. Then when you go to sleep at night, you think about that, and you think about how you can use all of those things you've learned and apply them to your life, which is why I get to marry someone like her.
That's a very, very good answer. I ain't gonna lie. I might have to take a leaf out your book.
There you go.
And then, like, obviously, I guess by learning, like, speaking to those family members, bride and groom, of course, you kind of learn how they probably want their day to be filmed.
You do, and then you try and make compromises. You try and find middle ground, because it's at the end of the day, it's creative indulgence, yes, but it's also someone's wedding film. I can do everything. My film's not going to go to the Oscars to win an award. It's not going to Cannes. It's there to make a family. The purpose of the wedding film, I think, unlike the lehenga, unlike anything else at the wedding, the wedding film, when it's ready and you guys watch it together, it brings your families closer together. That's the purpose of it. And with something like that, you want to make sure it's done well. I'll give you an example. Like you're talking about music and, you know, sad songs and a bride wanting a sad song. So Sidharth Malhotra, the actor, and Kiara Advani, the actress, were getting married. They did a film together, and in that film, they played a song called Ranjha.
That's right, yeah.
Now that song is about the army officer dying and him not ever coming back, and her yearning for him to come back, saying, "Why have you died? Why have you gone? You know, why can't you ever come back?" And it's a song about death and destruction. So she wanted to walk in on that song. Validly so, because it's the song that people loved the two of them for.
Yes.
Now, they're Bollywood actors and they're known for that song.
They are.
So it made sense for her to walk into that song. But what didn't make sense was the lyrics of the song. So what I did with my team was we changed the lyrics of the song and made them positive and made them happy and made them about, I'm coming to you. So fans of the Bollywood culture globally, what they did was they took the wedding film as the real ending to the movie.
Wow. Yes.
And said, oh, finally they get their happy ending.
They get their happy ending.
Because they didn't get it in the movie, but in real life they got their happy ending. And all of that was just, I didn't cook it up. I just cooked up the song.
That's crazy.
But the internet, which is this beautiful place that everyone goes to hang out, they coined this whole story about making it the happy ending. And that song was the highest ever played wedding song on Spotify last year. It got some 80 million, 100 something million, some insane numbers.
But like, how does that actually make you feel? Because not just the song, their version of the song went viral as well, as you've just mentioned, but creating this whole thing, you changed the lyrics of the song, they used it, you've done this amazing work, you filmed their work. Like, how have you processed any of this? Like, even I'm just sat here and I'm like, wow, like, have you had time to process it?
I think we're just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. We were there, you know, this happened. Karan Johar happened to be there at the wedding. Karan Johar owns the song. So now if somebody does that in the UK, they could get sued. Because you don't own the rights to the song to just manipulate it and change it the way you want to. But there you had Karan Johar there.
You had the people there.
You had the people there. You had the actor and the actress whose song it was. So it becomes easier to do. And to create for them.
But it's also, it shows the extra mile that you're ready and prepared to go down to make sure that that day is really special.
That's what makes it special. No, that's what makes a wedding special. Okay, everything should go that one extra mile. Your videographer should, your photographer should, your DJ should.
Yeah.
You know, they play that one extra song. They do that one extra mix, that one extra photo. That's what makes your work special and makes you stand out. If you just do substandard work constantly, you'll never stand out from the crowd. You'll never be able to have your own individual. And the world is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger now. It's not as intimate as it used to be when I was a barking boy.
Yeah. But it's I feel like this conversation so far has been very educational for a lot of young videographers, people that are in the wedding market that are still new to it. There's a lot of things, you've dropped a lot of gems so far. One of the things that I find interesting about you that I've read up on is that you don't like to film animals at weddings.
I don't know.
Yeah, and he's happy you said that as well.
Yeah, because you want to, if people like us don't change traditions, because their traditions are beautiful, customs are beautiful, and that's what we base our lives on as Asian people. But if we don't adapt and change with time, so things like dowry, things like animals, things like, you know, putting down the bride's family just because they're the bride's family, things like this put me off. Like when you're being conservative and traditional is different from being misogynistic and cruel. And you have that aspect too in some certain traditions because they're uneducated. At least back then, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, there was no research done on the hearing of animals. Now in today's day and age, zoology and, you know, veterinary science has become, we know that loud music and drums and fireworks would disturb a horse, would not make it comfortable.
Yeah.
So then we avoid it. If you're bringing Pablo to your wedding, I'll totally shoot your animal because I know he's being treated with care and love and respect.
But I totally understand what you're saying because I mean, I haven't thought about, like, I'm young, I haven't thought about my personal wedding and what I would have at my wedding.
You have a long time to go.
Yeah, exactly. But just the thought of, let's say, like the groom maybe coming in on a horse and there's like door players and it's really loud. I know that horse is going to be disturbed, as an example. So it's not nice.
But I think some people just genuinely just don't connect with animals. That's another thing. It's education.
But also, but in the pinned, what happens is, nahi, but shadi kaise hogi? If the groom doesn't come on the horse, how will this wedding happen? The wedding is not real if the groom doesn't come on a horse.
Because it's been a tradition.
So we have to change that very slowly, with kindness, not with anger. And you can't be like, no, how dare you? You have to do it sweetly. You have to explain it to them, tell them why. And they do listen.
But that's down to education. A lot of people don't really understand animals. I'll be honest with you. Like, I've seen the way people react even to that. Even to a small dog like this, they will see him and they will just think it's a toy. They'll be like, oh, like, just bring him down here. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that because they have feelings and they have moods and they have health that you got to think about. So it's all down to education.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You must be in situations as well where after you filmed a beautiful wedding, you obviously have to do the next side of it, which is the editing side.
That's the hard part.
Yeah, the bit that people don't really see, but they see it once it's out. So that process of editing, have you ever had a situation where you've been at one of the A-lister weddings or just a client's wedding and they want a turnaround like straight away? Like,
yes.
How is that pressure for you?
It's insane. We don't sleep at night. Luckily, I'm blessed with a huge team, very successful and a really talented editing crew. So another example, we take Sid and Kiara's wedding or any of these fancy weddings we do. They want to see trailers right then and then after the wedding. So we have a team in place with a colorist in place at the hotel with a full editing setup there, with a full editing setup, and they're cutting and editing all night and we're working on it and we send it for color correction, sound mixes. All our films are color corrected in Dolby. They're sound mixed in Dolby Atmos, so you have them in surround sound and you hear them. It's like you're there again, reliving it, and with all the details you missed. It's quite exciting.
It's like watching it in a cinema.
It's like watching it, and most of these guys have cinema halls in their house. They have like these big experiences, so you want to make it fun for them.
Makes sense, yeah. So what has been like the quickest turnaround that you've needed to deliver?
6 hours.
Bloody hell, man!
Oh my god!
How long was the video?
About 2 minutes. So it's a little trailer, like a teaser.
But
these are for Bollywood celebrities,
clips, though,
to get all
in
of
that
those,
2 minutes, it's a lot of work.
With
probably
cleanups
editing
and
whilst you're filming in your head. Then
we are editing while we're filming. We're editing. So luckily, the good thing in this is Indian weddings are 3 days, 4 days. They're never just a day, ever. So if it's a 3-day wedding, you have enough time on the first day to go through the first shots, the second day to get to the second shots, and then by the third day you kind of know what's missing and what you need. So that's one life hack I can give people who are trying to do this. Yeah. It's good to go in with a plan before, so don't go in there and start thinking of the plan after you've shot. As in your music base, your dialogue base, try and get that knocked out in the first part so you know where you're going,
what you're working with,
and what you're working with. Know the length of your film and lock that so you can not just keep going on till ever.
That's interesting, yeah. And I want to talk about something that's a bit personal.
Yeah.
You might refuse to talk about it, but it's the money side of it.
Yeah.
Because I find it real interesting, you know, you're doing some big weddings. The money must be good.
The money
coming from barking.
The money is good. But I mean, compared to the UK, let me ask you this. What does an average videographer cost in the UK per day? Is it per hour, per day? How do you guys work?
It really depends who you
are.
Obviously,
you're talking about a wedding event.
Good, like one of the best guys here. I haven't got married yet, so one of the big guys here.
So I could probably go off, like my sister's vodka that just happened. I don't know the exact cost, but I think that was a whole day. That was, it started at like 1 p.m. and it finished at 10 p.m. So that's like, you know, a good 9 hours basically. I'm pretty sure it was about three grand around that part, 3,000.
Yeah, so we are about 10 times more that cost.
I was about to say he's not looking to come back to the UK.
Yeah, that we are about 10 times that cost. But I mean, Indian weddings in India, if you look at it objectively, the amount of money it takes to make a wedding film like this is no small joke. You can make a film in, like, you can make a car, or you can make a lehenga or a dress in like 500 pounds, but you can also make it in 50,000.
But I think it also depends who you are as well, because you've built a rep, you've got a reputation. People are booking you for you.
I think you're guaranteed to have a product at the end, a wedding film that you know for certain is going to be worth watching and worth having.
Yeah.
Unlike, you know, taking a risk with things, because these things don't come back. You just have one opportunity to do it right. Yeah. So, you know, with most things you can always do it again. You can make adjustments to it if you're not happy with it.
With this you can't.
But with this, it's your wedding film. You don't want to screw around with it. So I think that investment is key. And when you see the amount of expenses people have at Indian weddings, I mean, just to sing for a night, some artists charge upwards of 50,000 to 100,000 pounds for a couple of hours a setup, you know. And if you're going to spend half of that getting your wedding recorded really well, and not just that 2 hours, but everything that happens over the past few days, I think it's a good bargain, because the payoff is that your family have an heirloom worth treasuring, because you'd give that to your great-grandchildren when they watch. How beautiful it would be if you had a documentary on your great-grandparents today, and you and your family could watch it and know your roots. It's like, dude, this is where I came from. When you have children, you could be like, this is where your dad came from. You know, this is where your grandparents were from. You know, we are from the Punjab, and it was like this back then, and now this is where we are.
We never had the opportunity to have that. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, technology is allowing us to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, and you speak to different family members, but when you've done that before, I find that really interesting, that, you know, you would speak to like grandparents or something like that, or like siblings and things like that.
The grandparents are my favorite, because that's where the most value is. Like, they're not going to be here for longer. So the value of the film I give the family, like these big high profile weddings, you talk to the grandparents, you know, Ranveer Singh's father, his nana, he's very close to his nanaji, his mother's father, and like the whole Advani family are very close to Kokila Ben. And you speak to these people, the knowledge they have about their families, and the things they have to say and the blessings, I think those are most valuable, because they've lived the longest and they've known life the longest. And they also have the shortest time on this earth with us. So the value of the things they say in your wedding film hold a lot of gold.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, to be
definitely. Some of these weddings, have they been quite emotional for you as well? Like, by the end of it, you just look back, or
they
become very attached to like family members, or even the bride and groom, you just become very close with them? Is that
you end up really doing. I mean, I met my fiance at a wedding, so then they become family. A lot of weddings inspire you. A lot of weddings make you a better person by default, just because of the amount of stories you hear. And how people fall in love, and, you know, what the sacrifices mums had to make, and the sacrifices dads had to make, and like, from the knowledge which I've spoken to 500 fathers, I can tell you this: 90% of them have told me, when I asked them about like what would they change about growing up with their children, it's like I just didn't get enough time with them. So I was so busy working, I was so busy running my life that I wish I could change that. So suddenly you know that this is a thing. In just the data itself is so insane.
Yeah.
That you can learn from life just looking at the data alone.
And I feel like weddings have this massive process as well. So for the couple, for the families, it's this massive process. And you've probably been to weddings where maybe a couple months later, weeks or years later, they're like, oh, we don't want the footage anymore because we're getting a divorce, for example.
That happened with a celebrity.
Really?
Yeah. 2 months after their wedding, he was cheating on her. And he was caught red-handed.
Did you catch it with your camera, or was it?
No, man. No, man.
This happened after.
It happened after 2 months after. He was
But did you have your suspicions?
bonking this Bollywood actress in his makeup van on a Bollywood set, and his wife walks in and catches him naked, and then says, "I don't want your wedding. I don't want the wedding because I'm calling the groom." He's like, he's not picking up my phone. I'm calling the bride. She's like, "Don't talk to me. I don't want the wedding film. Fuck up my." I'm like, whoa. So then I call up his manager, and he's like, "Bro, man, this wedding's not happening, man. The film, they don't want it, man." I'm like, what do I do? Do I sell it to Netflix? Because it's gold.
Was you already paid at that point? Or?
No, man.
Did you get paid?
No. So then I changed so back then I used to have a contract that said 50% before. And then 50% when I give you the film. After this incident, I was like, fuck that. This is about the heart and about marriage and life and fam. So I'm going to charge you 100%.
Because the thing is, no matter what's happened in your personal life, I feel like it's just a standard thing for your vendors to be paid, no matter what's happened.
Problem is, it gets technical because there's like, who should pay that now?
Yes.
And what do you do? What do I do with this wedding film?
Is he going to edit it? Is he still going to edit it? Is he going to have a cutaway at the end of?
Because in the wedding film, the groom's crying. I mean, fake tears now. He crocodile tears. He's like this, like, "I love you, baby." and he's a big Bollywood actor. Can't take names. But damn.
I was going to ask you who, but I know you're going to.
You know who you are.
Scumbag. But then even with that then, it's like, was you chasing them for the money?
Nah.
Did you just leave?
You'd leave. The thing is this, the value that I have of that footage is worth millions.
So you're potentially,
because it's a comedy film.
On this camera angle here, you're
it's
basically
a comedy
bribing them.
So I could sell it and I could make shitloads of money.
You better run.
But I've just not had the time to like look into it. But one day I will.
Yeah.
You better send Vishal a piece.
There you go.
That's crazy. So like, when it comes to all the weddings that you've done, what's been like your favorite? You don't have to mention names, but like if you do want to mention them, you can.
I think there's just nice ones. Very recently, I can't take names, but yeah, there's this princess I filmed. She's a South Indian princess and very beautiful. And she got married to this prince from the south. And they had this ancestral temple that they married in, and it was beautiful. It was like early in the morning. And unlike other weddings where you go where there's dolls and there's noise and there's fireworks and there's this and there's partying and there's lights and there's DJ, and this was quiet, it was serene, and it was by the lake.
Wow.
And the grandmother built the temple, and it was a beautiful temple, and they did it very simply, like local flowers, no flying in flowers from Amsterdam and Europe and Switzerland and planes and private jets, nothing. It was just them in simple clothes, doing it simply. And that evening they had a beautiful lunch in their ancestral home, which was again a palace. And they had this lunch with just their closest family and friends, and I envied that intimacy. And that, despite the fact that if the world got to know they were getting married, there would have been so much noise. They could have gotten so much mileage off it, social media. They would have had like 1 million more followers. They would have had, but they didn't care about all that. It was just more important was the day, the two of them, and how people felt that day.
That's nice. I feel like the intimate weddings are probably really nice to witness as well.
I loved it.
But on the other hand, you must have seen amazing weddings with massive production, so many guests.
You had Beyonce, Coldplay, Adam Levine, and then every Indian artist you can imagine and more, plus their children and their mothers who were there at this wedding performing, and it's insane. You get these huge ones.
Yeah. What's been the biggest one you've filmed for in terms of guest-wise?
there was a politician marrying. Are you familiar with Indian politics? The BJP and the Congress, which is like the Labour and Conservative Party here, but a bigger, nastier scale. Two of their ministers' children were getting married to each other from two different parties.
Right.
So you had entire villages coming in a stadium. So there was 30,000 people at the wedding.
Oh, wow.
So then there were truckloads and bus loads and crowd control, because the entire village was loaded onto trains to come, and there were feasts that were. It was a task. It was.
So what was you expected to capture doing that? I mean, you can't film
the magic. We had 40 cameras, helicopters, drones, and like the cameras that you used to film cricket matches with.
Yeah,
we had those.
Mad.
So those are productions.
It's been I mean, it's been mad insightful learning more about your line of work and your journey, and spending time embarking with some dreams, and then actually connecting with Shah Rukh Khan whilst living in Barking, and then I'm guessing that changed your whole life.
It did.
It opened up so many doors for you. We're listening back to obviously your stories, and it's just amazing to hear. Mad inspirational.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
Really glad. What's the future plans? Because you've spoken about growing your business into doing more affordable weddings for people, for example. What are you working on?
So I fell in love with this girl who lives in the UK a couple of years ago. I went to this wedding, and she was there, and she was looking stunning and beautiful, and we fell in love.
Oh.
And then I was like, shit, we got to get married. But the thing is, she's a very successful and very talented dentist who lives and works in the UK. And so now we're trying to work out life where I can come here and spend the summers here.
Okay.
At least 6 months a year, or 4 months at least, if not 6, when there's wedding season here, spend some time in Europe and in the UK and do weddings here. And then in wedding season, I go back to India, and then we do weddings there. So that's the future plan now for the next couple of years. I'm also working on a Bollywood TV show. That's again surrounded around weddings. It's kind of like Made in Heaven again. We're kind of rebooting that, but making it more happy and less dark. Yeah, that's what I have in plans right now.
Well, Vishal, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you, DJ Limelight and DJ Sims.
Thank you so much for coming on, and
I'm so glad.
really excited to see the weddings you do in the UK.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much.
I've got to take you to a chicken shop down Ilford Lane now. Yeah?
Let's do this.
It's called Lakers.
Oh, wow.